The massive space station called Concordia floated in the darkness between three bright stars. It was the size of a small moon, with gleaming metal walls and thousands of windows that sparkled like diamonds. Inside its great halls, beings from 12 different worlds had gathered for something that had never happened before, a meeting to discuss the newest members of the galaxy. Ambassador Veltar of the Altarian Empire adjusted his flowing robes and looked around the main conference room with barely hidden disgust. The elegant blue-skinned alien had lived for over 300 years and had never seen such a mix of species in one place. To his left sat the insect-like Zephyrites, their compound eyes glittering as they whispered to each other in clicking sounds. Across the curved table, the ghostly ethereals floated in their energy suits, ancient beings who claimed to have brought peace to the galaxy 1,000 years ago. "We are here," announced High Ethereal Lumara in a voice that sounded like wind chimes, "to welcome our newest neighbors into the galactic community." Veltar made a sound of annoyance. "Neighbors? These humans are barely out of their caves. 50 years ago, they were throwing rocks at each other on their little blue planet. Now they think they can fly between the stars." The Zephyrite hive speaker, a creature that looked like a cross between a mantis and a spider, clicked its mandibles. The collective agrees with the Altarian assessment. Humans show dangerous tendencies toward violence and disorder. They do not think as one. They fight among themselves even now. Around the table, other aliens nodded or made their species' version of agreement. The bear-like Corvani grunted. The plant-based Silathi rustled their leaves. The crystalline Nexari chimed softly. All of them had the same opinion. Humans were trouble. High Ethereal Lumara raised one translucent hand for silence. "That is precisely why we must act carefully. These humans have developed faster than light travel in only 50 years after we made contact. Their technology grows at an alarming rate." "Primitive technology," Veltar said with a wave of his hand. "Their ships are metal boxes with engines. No grace, no art. They build everything like they expect it to be shot at." "Because they do expect it," said General Thakmore of the Corvani Defense Force. The massive bear-like creature leaned forward, making his chair creak. "I have studied their military reports. They have something called world wars that killed millions of their own kind. They know how to fight." The insectoid Zephyrite hive speaker's eyes gleamed. "This supports the collective's analysis. Humans are a warrior species. They must be contained before they spread their violence to peaceful worlds." A new voice spoke up from the far end of the table. Captain Jix of the Hegemony Rangers was a reptilian being with green scales and cold yellow eyes. "My scouts report increased human activity in the outer systems. They are building bases and mining operations. Some of our traders have had uncomfortable encounters with human patrols." "Uncomfortable how?" asked Lumara. "The humans scan everything. They ask many questions. They want to know where we come from, where we are going, what we carry. They are suspicious of everyone." Veltar laughed, a sound like silver bells. "Of course they are suspicious. They assume everyone thinks like they do. War-minded creatures always expect war." The Silathi delegate rustled her purple leaves. When she spoke, her voice was like a gentle breeze. "Perhaps we judge too harshly. The humans have shown interest in trade and cultural exchange. Some of their art and music is quite beautiful." "Beautiful but chaotic," replied the crystal being Nexari in tones like singing glass. "Their music has no mathematical harmony. Their art follows no logical patterns. They create for emotion rather than reason." High Ethereal Lumara floated higher above her seat. "This brings us to the purpose of today's gathering. The Galactic Council has prepared an integration proposal for humanity. It will help them transition into civilized galactic society while protecting existing trade routes and territorial boundaries." She gestured, and a holographic document appeared above the table. The text scrolled past in multiple languages, but the meaning was clear to everyone present. The integration proposal was really a list of rules and limits. Humans could travel to certain systems, but not others. They could trade specific goods, but not weapons or advanced technology. They could build colonies in empty space but had to ask permission first. These restrictions seem reasonable, said Veltar, reading through the document. It will keep them contained while they learn proper galactic behavior. The collective calculates a 97% probability that humans will reject these terms, clicked the Zephyrite hive speaker. General Thakmor nodded his massive head. I agree with the bugs. Humans do not like being told what to do. My intelligence reports show they barely listen to their own governments. Then they will learn the consequences of refusing galactic law, said Captain Jix coldly. The hegemony has dealt with rebellious species before. As has the Empire, added Veltar. Young species often need guidance to understand their place in the galaxy. High ethereal Lumara's energy form flickered slightly. We prefer peaceful solutions. The ethereal collective has maintained galactic stability for a millennium through wisdom and negotiation. Negotiation backed by superior firepower, muttered General Thakmor. Before anyone could respond to this uncomfortable truth, an alarm chimed softly through the station. A mechanical voice announced, Long-range sensors detect approaching vessel, classification unknown. Estimated arrival, 6 hours. Captain Jix touched a control on his wrist device. Station command, this is Captain Jix. What type of unknown? Vessel? The response crackled over the communication system. Sir, the energy signature matches human technology, but the scale is unusual. The ship appears to be much larger than any human vessel in our database. Around the conference table, the delegates exchanged glances. The Zephyrite began clicking rapidly among themselves. Veltar's elegant features twisted into a frown. Even the ancient ethereals seemed disturbed by this news. How much larger? Asked Lumara. Preliminary scans suggest a length of approximately 1,000 meters, sir. Mass readings are extraordinary. Silence fell over the conference room like a heavy blanket. The largest human ship anyone had seen before was maybe 200 meters long. A 1,000-meter vessel was something entirely different. That was the size of a major warship. This changes things, said General Thakmor quietly. Veltar stood up from his chair, his robes flowing around him. It changes nothing. So the humans built a larger ship. Size means little if the technology is still primitive. But even as he spoke, uncertainty crept into his voice. The other delegates could hear it. If humans could build ships that size, what else might they be capable of? Perhaps, said the Silathi delegate softly, we should postpone the integration proposal until we learn more about this vessel. No, said Lumara firmly. We proceed as planned. This summit will continue. If anything, the arrival of this ship makes our mission more urgent. We must establish proper boundaries before human ambitions grow beyond control. She looked around the table at each delegate in turn. We represent the combined wisdom and power of 12 advanced civilizations. We will not be intimidated by one ship from one young species. But as the delegates tried to return to their discussions, none of them could forget the number the sensors had given them. 1,000 meters. In the darkness outside the station, something was coming toward them. Something bigger than anything they had expected. The great powers of the galaxy had gathered to decide humanity's fate. Now they began to wonder if humanity might have other ideas about who would be making decisions in their corner of the universe. 5 hours later, the unknown human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Every sensor on Concordia Station immediately focused on the new arrival, and what they saw made even the most experienced military officers pause in shock. The ship was indeed 1,000 meters long, but the raw measurements had not captured its true nature. This was not just a large transport or cargo vessel. This was clearly, unmistakably a warship. Its hull was dark gray metal covered in angular armor plates. Weapon ports dotted its surface like the eyes of some ancient predator. Massive engine. Bells glowed blue-white at its stern, giving it the power to move despite its enormous mass. Unlike the flowing artistic designs favored by most galactic civilizations, the human ship looked like it had been built by engineers who expected to fight for their lives. Every line was functional. Every surface was armored. There was no decoration, no attempt at beauty. It was a tool designed for one purpose: destruction. In the main conference room of Concordia Station, the alien delegates stared at the tactical display showing the approaching vessel. The silence stretched for long minutes as each species processed what they were seeing. Captain Jix was the first to speak. "That is not a ship," he said quietly. "That is a fortress with engines." The Zephyrite Hive speaker's compound eyes clicked as they focused on different parts of the image. The collective counts 73 visible weapon emplacements. Estimated firepower exceeds any single vessel in our database. Ambassador Veltar felt something he had not experienced in decades: uncertainty. The elegant Altarian had always prided himself on understanding lesser species. But this ship challenged everything he thought he knew about human capabilities. How did they build something like this without our intelligence networks detecting it? General Thakmore leaned forward, his military mind already analyzing the tactical implications. "Look at the design. See how the armor overlaps? The way the weapons are positioned? These humans understand warfare better than we thought." High Ethereal Lumara's energy form flickered rapidly, a sign of distress among her people. Our projections showed human technology advancing steadily but slowly. This represents a leap of decades in just a few years. "Unless," said the Silathi delegate slowly, "they were already more advanced than we realized." The uncomfortable possibility hung in the air like a toxic gas. What if the humans had been hiding their true capabilities? What if everything the galactic powers thought they knew about this young species was wrong? A communication signal reached the station from the approaching ship. The transmission was clear and professional, delivered in accented but proper galactic standard language. "Concordia Station, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Human Space Force vessel Indomitable. We request permission to dock and join the diplomatic summit currently in progress." The voice was calm, polite, and completely confident. There was no hint of the nervousness or awe that other young species usually showed when approaching the great powers of the galaxy. Captain Jix activated his communicator. "Human vessel Indomitable, this is Captain Jix of Concordia Station Security. You are not invited to this summit. Please state your intentions." "Captain Jix," came the reply. "Humanity received notice of a galactic summit discussing our species' integration into the galactic community. We felt it appropriate to participate in discussions about our own future." Veltar hissed in anger. "The arrogance. They assume they have a right to be here." "They do have a right," said Lumara thoughtfully. "Galactic law requires that any species being discussed at a formal summit must be allowed representation if they request it." "That law was written for peaceful first contacts," protested Captain Jix, "not for species that arrive in battleships." The Zephyrite Hive speaker clicked rapidly. The collective notes that the human captain did not ask permission to dock. She simply requested it. The phrasing suggests confidence in approval. On the tactical display, the massive human ship continued its approach toward the station. As it drew closer, more details became visible. The armor was thicker than anyone had expected. The weapon systems were larger and more numerous. Most disturbing of all, everything looked new. This was not some ancient relic or lucky discovery. The humans had built this monster recently. "Station command," came another voice over the communication system. "The human vessel is conducting what they call a routine sensor sweep of our defensive systems." Every alien delegate felt their blood run cold. A routine sensor sweep of military installations was only routine if you were measuring them for potential attack. The humans were sizing up Concordia's defenses as casually as someone might check the weather. "How dare they?" sputtered Veltar. "This is an act of aggression." "Actually," said General Thakmore grimly, "this is an act of professional competence. Any military commander would want to know the defensive capabilities of a station before approaching it." The bear-like Corvani general pulled up his own tactical analysis. The results made his fur stand on end. "Their sensors are scanning through our shields like they are not there. I am reading active targeting systems focusing on our weapon emplacements." Captain Jix's reptilian eyes narrowed to slits. "Are they threatening us?" "No," said Thakmor after studying the readings more carefully. They are demonstrating their capabilities. There is a difference. The distinction was important but not comforting. The humans were not pointing weapons at the station. They were simply showing that they could gather detailed information about its defenses whenever they wanted. The message was clear. We know exactly what you can do and we are not afraid of it. High ethereal Lumara floated higher, her energy form pulsing with agitation. We must make a decision. Do we allow them to dock, or do we risk the first interstellar incident in centuries? If we refuse them, said the Silathi delegate, we will appear weak. Other species will see that we were intimidated by a single ship. If we allow them, said Veltar, we set a precedent. Any species can force their way into galactic politics by building bigger weapons. The Zephyrite hive speaker consulted with the collective mind of their species. After a moment of rapid clicking, they announced their conclusion. Probability analysis suggests that refusing to allow the humans to dock will result in either diplomatic embarrassment or military confrontation. Neither outcome serves the collective's interests. Around the table, similar calculations were taking place in a dozen different minds. Each species was weighing their options and finding them all unpleasant. Captain Jix made the decision for them. Human vessel Indomitable, you are cleared to dock at Port 7. Please reduce your active scanning and power down non-essential weapon systems as a courtesy to other vessels in the area. Understood, Concordia. Reducing active scans now. However, defensive systems will remain at standard readiness. I am sure you understand. The implication was clear. The humans would lower their sensors out of politeness, but they would keep their weapons ready just in case. It was the response of a species that had learned not to trust anyone completely. As the Indomitable maneuvered toward the docking port, its massive bulk casting shadows across the station's hull, the alien delegates tried to process what had just happened. They had come to this summit expecting to dictate terms to a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves accommodating the demands of beings who had arrived in the most powerful warship any of them had ever seen. This changes everything, whispered the Silathi delegate. No, said Lumara firmly, though her energy form continued to flicker with uncertainty. This changes the context, but not our purpose. We are still here to establish humanity's place in the galactic order. But as they watched the human battleship settle into its docking clamps with surprising grace for such a massive vessel, each delegate privately wondered the same thing. Exactly what kind of place did humanity intend to claim for itself? The great powers of the galaxy were about to find out. Captain Elena Vasquez walked through the corridors of Concordia Station with the confident stride of someone who belonged there. Behind her followed 3 members of her diplomatic team, a mix of military officers and civilian experts who had spent years preparing for this moment. The aliens they passed in the hallway stared openly at the humans, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed hostility. Elena was a woman in her mid-40s with graying hair and the kind of steady gaze that came from commanding a starship in dangerous situations. She wore a simple blue uniform with minimal decoration, preferring function over ceremony. Her team was similarly dressed, professional but not intimidating. When they entered the main conference room, the conversation among the alien delegates immediately stopped. 12 species representing the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy turned to study the newcomers. Elena felt the weight of their attention, but showed no sign of being impressed or intimidated. "Honored delegates," she said with a slight bow, "I am Captain Elena Vasquez, representing humanity in these discussions. Thank you for allowing us to join you." High ethereal Lumara gestured to empty seats that had been quickly arranged at the table. "Captain Vasquez, please be seated. We were just reviewing the integration proposal that the Galactic Council has prepared for your species." Elena took her seat and accepted the holographic document that appeared before her. She read through it quickly, her expression remaining neutral even as she absorbed the implications of what was being proposed. When she finished, she looked up at the assembled aliens with the same calm professionalism she had shown throughout. "This is very thorough," she said finally. "I can see that a great deal of thought went into these recommendations." Ambassador Veltar leaned forward. his blue features arranged in what he probably thought was a kindly expression. We understand that some of these restrictions may seem limiting to a young species eager to explore the galaxy. However, they are for your own protection as much as for galactic stability. Protection from what? Asked Elena. The question hung in the air for a moment. Veltar had not expected such a direct response. From the dangers of expanding too quickly, said Lumara smoothly. Many species have harmed themselves by growing beyond their ability to maintain control over their territories. Elena nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. Tell me, when the Altarian Empire was expanding across 17 star systems 300 years ago, what protections were in place to prevent them from growing too quickly? The silence that followed was deafening. Veltar's elegant features twisted into a frown. The Altarian expansion was a carefully planned colonization effort that brought civilization to empty worlds. According to our historical records, said Dr. Sarah Chen, one of Elena's advisors, the Altarian expansion displaced 3 smaller species and resulted in the extinction of the Velnathi civilization. More uncomfortable silence. The aliens exchanged glances, wondering how humans had gained access to such detailed historical information. The Velnathi were a warrior culture, said Veltar defensively. They refused peaceful integration. Much like humanity is expected to do with this proposal? Asked Elena mildly. Captain Jix's reptilian eyes narrowed. Are you threatening to refuse our offer of integration? I am not threatening anything, replied Elena. I am simply trying to understand the standards being applied. The Zephyrite Collective has assimilated 14 different hive species in the past 2 centuries. The Corvani Defense Force has conquered 6 systems in territorial disputes. The Ethereal Collective has imposed protective governance on 11 worlds that happen to have valuable resources. Each accusation hit like a physical blow. The delegates had not expected humans to know so much about their histories, let alone bring them up so bluntly. General Thakmore growled low in his throat. Those were different situations, complex political circumstances that required strong responses. I agree completely, said Elena. Complex situations often require strong responses. That is why humanity has been preparing for complex situations. Dr. Chen activated a holographic display that showed detailed specifications of the Indomitable. The aliens leaned forward despite themselves, studying the technical data with growing unease. Our ship represents 50 years of focused technological development, Elena continued. We learned very quickly that the galaxy is not a safe place for unprepared species, so we decided not to be unprepared. The Zephyrite hive speaker clicked rapidly. The collective observes that human military development has proceeded much faster than our intelligence estimated. Your intelligence was looking in the wrong places, said Commander James Torres, Elena's military advisor. You were monitoring our civilian shipping and commercial activities. You were not monitoring our military research facilities. Because we assumed you would be open about your capabilities, said Lumara, her energy form flickering with agitation. Elena smiled for the first time since entering the room. It was not a particularly warm smile. With respect, High Ethereal, no species in this room has been completely open about their military capabilities. The Altarian Empire maintains a fleet 3 times larger than they report to the Galactic Registry. The Corvani Defense Force has weapons platforms in systems they claim are demilitarized. The Ethereal Collective has ships that do not officially exist. The accusations were delivered calmly, backed up by data that appeared on the holographic display. Ship movements, energy signatures, communication intercepts, evidence that humanity had been watching the Watchers. This is impossible, sputtered Veltar. You are a young species. You lack the resources for such extensive intelligence gathering. We are young, agreed Elena, but we are not stupid, and we are very good at learning from other people's mistakes. She stood up and walked to the large window that showed the Indomitable docked outside. The massive warship dominated the view, its dark hull reflecting the light of distant stars. Every species in this room achieved their current position through strength, she said without turning around. You built fleets, conquered territories, and imposed your will on weaker neighbors. Then once you were secure, you created laws and treaties to prevent other species from doing the same thing to you. We created a stable galactic order, protested Lumara. You created a system that benefits the current powers, Elena replied, turning back to face the table, which is perfectly natural. We do not criticize you for acting in your own interests, but you should not be surprised when we act in ours. The Silathi delegate rustled her leaves nervously. What exactly are humanity's interests? The same as everyone else's, said Elena simply. Security, prosperity, and the freedom to determine our own future. And if that conflicts with galactic stability, asked Captain Jix. Elena returned to her seat and looked directly at each delegate in turn. Then perhaps galactic stability needs to be redefined. The words fell like hammer blows. These aliens had spent centuries convinced that their way of organizing the galaxy was the only reasonable approach. Now they were being told by a species they considered primitive that they might need to change. The integration proposal you have presented, Elena continued, treats humanity as a junior partner who should be grateful for whatever scraps we are allowed. That is not acceptable. Then what would be acceptable? Asked Lumara. Full membership in the galactic community, said Elena. The same rights and responsibilities enjoyed by every other major power. Recognition of our territorial claims. A seat on the Galactic Council. Veltar laughed, though it sounded forced. Impossible. Council seats are earned through centuries of responsible participation in galactic affairs. The Altarian Empire received their council seat after conquering the Velnathi homeworld, Dr. Chen pointed out. The Corvani Defense Force earned theirs by threatening to destroy 3 different trade routes. The Ethereal Collective took theirs by declaring themselves the guardians of galactic peace and daring anyone to argue. More uncomfortable truths. The aliens were beginning to realize that humanity had studied their history very carefully and learned all the wrong lessons, or perhaps all the right ones. You are asking us to treat you as equals when you have not proven yourselves worthy, said the crystalline Nexari in chiming tones. Elena stood up again, this time with a hardness in her expression that made several aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. Worthy? We have proven ourselves the same way every other species in this room has proven themselves. With strength. She gestured toward the window and the massive warship beyond. The Indomitable is not our most powerful vessel. It is simply the first of its class. We have been preparing for this conversation for 50 years, and we are ready for whatever decision you make. The silence that followed was complete. The great powers of the galaxy found themselves in a position they had not experienced for centuries, facing someone who refused to be intimidated. The emergency session began an hour after the humans left to return to their ship. The alien delegates had requested a recess to discuss Elena's demands, and the conversation that followed was unlike anything in the recorded history of galactic diplomacy. Ambassador Veltar paced back and forth across the conference room, his elegant robes flowing behind him like water. His usual composure had cracked, revealing the anger and frustration beneath. This is intolerable. A species that learned to fly between stars 5 decades ago is making demands of civilizations that have existed for millennia. The age of our civilizations does not change the facts, said General Takmor grimly. The massive Corvani studied tactical displays showing the Indomitable's specifications. That ship could destroy half the vessels in this system before we could respond effectively. The Zephyrite Hive speaker clicked rapidly as their collective consciousness processed probability calculations. The collective has analyzed all available data. Current probability of successful military action against humanity stands at 37%. This assumes the humans have told the truth about their fleet size. And if they have not told the truth? Asked Captain Jix, more clicking. Probability drops to 12%. High ethereal Lumara floated silently above her position, her energy form pulsing with agitation. For the first time in her long existence, she was facing a problem that could not be solved through careful diplomacy and implied threats. The humans had changed the fundamental equations of galactic power. We need more information, she said finally. How many ships do they really have? What are their true capabilities? How long have they been planning this? Our intelligence networks have failed us completely, admitted Captain Jix. Everything we thought we knew about human military capacity was wrong. The Salathi delegate spoke up, her voice like wind through leaves. Perhaps we have been asking the wrong questions. Instead of wondering how they hid their capabilities, we should ask why they felt the need to hide them. Veltar stopped pacing and turned to face her. What do you mean? Think about it from their perspective, the plant being continued. They are a young species surrounded by ancient powers who view them as children to be managed. What would any intelligent species do in that situation? Prepare for war, said Thakmor quietly. The uncomfortable truth settled over the room like a blanket. The great galactic powers had assumed humanity would be grateful for their guidance and protection. Instead, the humans had looked at galactic history and decided they needed to be ready to fight for their independence. This is our fault, said the Nexari in crystalline tones. We approached them as conquerors approach primitives, not as equals greeting equals. Veltar whirled around, angrily. They are not our equals. They have existed in space for barely 50 years. And in that time they have built ships that outclass anything in our fleets, Thakmor pointed out. Age means nothing if it comes with superior capability. The Zephyrite Hive speaker's compound eyes focused on different displays as they processed new information. The collective has detected additional energy signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple vessels approaching under stealth conditions. Every alien in the room felt their blood run cold. More human ships were coming. How many? Asked Lumara. Difficult to determine. The stealth technology is more advanced than our sensors, can easily penetrate. Minimum estimate, 6 vessels. Maximum estimate, 20 or more. Captain Jix activated his communication system. All ships, this is Concordia Station. We have detected unidentified vessels approaching the system. Increase readiness levels and prepare for possible hostile action. Belay that order, said Lumara quickly. Jix looked at her in surprise. High ethereal? If we respond with military preparation, we will appear to be threatening the humans. That could justify any action they choose to take. The cold logic of the situation was becoming clear. The aliens were trapped in a position where any aggressive move could be used to justify human retaliation, but any passive response would make them look weak to other species watching the situation. What do you recommend? Asked Veltar through gritted teeth. We negotiate, said Lumara simply. With what leverage? Demanded the Altarian ambassador. They have shown they are not intimidated by our threats. Then we offer them what they want, said the Salathi delegate. The room erupted in protests. Veltar's voice rose above the others. Absolutely not. If we give in to human demands, every species in the galaxy will think they can challenge the established order by building bigger weapons. Every species in the galaxy already knows that, Thakmor pointed out. That is how all of us achieved our current positions. The bear-like general pulled up historical data on his display. The Altarian Empire did not ask permission before expanding into 17 systems. The Zephyrite Collective did not negotiate before assimilating smaller hive minds. The Ethereal Collective did not hold votes before declaring themselves galactic peacekeepers. Those were different times, protested Veltar. Were they? Or are we simply uncomfortable being on the receiving end of power politics for the first time in centuries? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Each delegate was forced to confront the possibility that their own rise to power had been just as disruptive to the galactic order of their time. Lumara's energy form brightened as she came to a decision. We must consider the long-term consequences. If we fight the humans and win, we face a devastated galaxy and the knowledge that peaceful species everywhere will begin building weapons to protect themselves from us. If we fight and lose, she did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room could imagine the consequences of a failed war against humanity. If we negotiate, continued the High Ethereal, we maintain stability while acknowledging new realities. The humans become partners rather than enemies. Partners? Veltar's voice dripped with disgust. They are demanding to be treated as equals when they have earned nothing. They have earned the right to be feared, said Thakmor bluntly. In galactic politics, that is often the same thing as respect. The Zephyrite Hive speaker clicked urgently. The collective has reached a consensus. Continued resistance to human demands carries unacceptable risks. Adaptation is necessary for survival. Around the table, similar calculations were taking place. The Corvani understood strength. The Salathi valued survival. The Nexari appreciated logical solutions. Even the proud Altarians were beginning to realize that their options were limited. "What exactly are they asking for?" asked Captain Jix. Lamara called up the summary of Elena's demands. Recognition as a major galactic power, unrestricted expansion rights in unclaimed space, a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. Essentially, they want the same status we have enjoyed for centuries. And in return, they promise to respect existing territorial boundaries and honor mutual defense agreements. The same commitments we have made to each other. The room fell silent as each delegate considered the implications. The humans were not asking for anything unreasonable. They were simply demanding to be treated as equals rather than subjects. "There is another consideration," said the Salathi delegate quietly. "What if we say no, and they decide our approval is not necessary?" The thought was terrifying. What if humanity simply declared themselves a major power and began acting like one? What if they started forming alliances with other species who were dissatisfied with the current system? What if they decided that the existing galactic order needed to be replaced entirely? "We vote," said Lumara finally. "All in favor of accepting the human demands and offering them full membership in the galactic community?" One by one, reluctantly, the hands and appendages rose. Even Veltar, after a long moment of internal struggle, raised his elegant blue hand. "Unanimous," said Lumara with something that might have been relief in her voice. "We will inform Captain Vasquez that humanity is welcome as an equal partner in galactic affairs." Outside the conference room windows, the Indomitable hung in space like a dark promise. Soon it would be joined by other human vessels and the galaxy would never be the same again. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and the great powers had just voted to make it legal. 3 months after the Concordia summit, the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable as it patrolled the edge of human space, watching a steady stream of ships moving through the nearby trade routes. Some were alien vessels that had quickly adapted to the changed political landscape. Others were human ships spreading out to claim the opportunities that full galactic membership had provided. "Captain," said Commander Torres, approaching with a datapad in his hand, "we have the latest intelligence reports from Earth Command." Elena accepted the pad and scrolled through the information with practiced efficiency. The news was a mix of expected developments and surprising adaptations. The Altarian Empire had begun a massive military buildup, apparently determined not to be caught off guard again. The Zephyrite Collective had opened formal diplomatic channels and was already negotiating trade agreements with human colonies. The Ethereal Collective had retreated to their core systems and seemed to be reassessing their entire approach to galactic governance. "Any immediate threats?" she asked. "Nothing directed at us specifically," Torres replied. "But there have been 3 border incidents between other species in the past month. The old balance of power is shifting, and not everyone is happy about it." Elena nodded thoughtfully. This was exactly what they had expected. By forcing their way into the galactic power structure, humanity had disrupted relationships that had been stable for centuries. Some species would see opportunity in the chaos, others would see danger. What about the colony ships? Proceeding on schedule. The advance fleet reached the Kepler 438 system yesterday and confirmed that the 3 worlds there are suitable for terraforming. We should have our first permanent settlement operational within 6 months. Elena smiled. This was what it had all been about. The freedom for humanity to expand and grow without asking permission from species who had appointed themselves as galactic guardians. The Concordia summit had been a diplomatic victory, but it was meaningless unless it led to real change in human circumstances. "Captain," came a voice from the communication station. "We are receiving a priority message from Admiral Chen at Earth Command." "Put it through to my ready room," Elena replied. "James, you have the bridge." In the privacy of her office, Elena activated the secure communication link that connected the Indomitable to Earth across dozens of light years. Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared on the screen, showing the same mixture of satisfaction and concern that Elena had been feeling lately. "Elena, good to see you," Chen said with a slight smile. "I trust the patrol is going smoothly?" "No problem so far. The aliens seem to be keeping their distance while they figure out how to deal with us. That may be changing sooner than we hoped. We have received formal requests from 6 different species asking for military alliances or mutual defense agreements. 3 of them are offering very favorable terms." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Which 3? The Salathi Confederacy, the Nexari Republic, and surprisingly, the Corvani Defense Force. General Thakmor apparently convinced his government that humans make better allies than enemies. And the others?" Chen's expression grew more serious. "The Velkari Union, the Centauran League, and the Free Traders Alliance. All smaller powers who think an alliance with humanity might help them stand up to the traditional big players." Elena leaned back in her chair, considering the implications. This was happening faster than anyone had expected. The mere existence of human military power was already reshaping galactic politics in fundamental ways. "What does Earth Command recommend?" "Proceed carefully," Chen replied. "We want allies, but we do not want to be seen as gathering a coalition against the established powers. That could trigger the very war we have been trying to avoid." "Understood. What about the Altarians? Any word on their military preparations?" "Ambassador Veltar has been making speeches about the need to restore galactic stability and protect civilization from chaotic influences. Our intelligence suggests they are building at least 12 new battleships." Elena was not surprised. The proud Altarians had been humiliated at Concordia and were clearly preparing to make sure it never happened again. The question was whether they would be content with defensive preparations or if they were planning something more aggressive. "Any timeline on when their new ships will be operational?" 18 months minimum, Chen replied. "Probably closer to 2 years for the full fleet. That gives us time to strengthen our own position." After the conversation ended, Elena returned to the observation deck to think. The view was peaceful. Stars scattered across the darkness like diamonds on black velvet, trade ships moving in, orderly patterns along established routes. But she knew that beneath the surface the galaxy was in a state of controlled tension. Humanity had achieved everything they had set out to accomplish at Concordia. They were recognized as a major power, with all the rights and privileges that entailed. Human colonies were spreading into previously forbidden space. Trade agreements were opening new markets for human goods and technology. But success had brought new challenges. Other species were either trying to align themselves with humanity or preparing to oppose them. The careful balance that had maintained galactic peace for centuries was crumbling, and no one knew what would replace it. "Captain," said Torres, joining her at the observation window, "long-range sensors are detecting a large convoy approaching from the direction of Earth. Colony. Ships?" Helena checked her personal communicator and smiled. "Actually, those are the first of the new Titan-class battleships. Earth Command decided that if we are going to be a major galactic power, we need a fleet that looks the part." Torres whistled, appreciatively. "How many?" 12 in the first wave. 24 more under construction. By this time next year, we will have the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Think the aliens will try to stop us? Elena considered the question carefully. Some might try, but they will discover what the Altarians learned at Concordia. It is easier to negotiate with us than to fight us. As if summoned by their conversation, a new ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel nearby. It was sleek and graceful in the Altarian style, but its weapon ports and armor plating marked it as a military vessel. A patrol ship, probably gathering intelligence on human fleet movements. "Should we intercept?" asked Torres. "No," Elena replied. Let them look. Let them see that we are exactly as strong as we claim to be. The Altarian ship maintained its distance but continued to scan the human vessels with obvious interest. Elena could imagine the reports that would be filed, the intelligence assessments that would be updated, the strategic plans that would be revised. The galaxy's power brokers were still learning to deal with the reality of human strength. Over the next several hours, more ships arrived from Earth. Each one was larger and more heavily armed than anything in the previous human fleet. The message was clear. Humanity was not content to rest on their diplomatic victory. They were preparing for whatever challenges the future might bring. "You know," said Torres thoughtfully, 6 months ago we were worried about whether the aliens would even let us join their club. Elena smiled at the memory. And now? Now they are worried about whether we are going to start our own club and invite everyone else to join. Maybe we will, Elena replied. The galaxy is a big place. There is room for more than one way of doing things. As the human fleet gathered strength in the darkness between the stars, alien ships watched from safe distances and transmitted reports to their home governments. The great powers that had ruled the galaxy for centuries were learning that their authority was no longer absolute. Humanity had wanted a seat at the table. Instead, they had built their own table and invited everyone else to join them as equals. The galaxy would never be the same. In the distance, a new star flickered to life as another human colony ship ignited its fusion engines and began the journey to a distant world. Soon there would be human settlements scattered across dozens of systems, each one defended by ships that could stand against anything the galaxy had to offer. The age of human expansion had begun, and the great powers had no choice but to adapt to the new reality. They had tried to treat humanity as children who needed guidance. Instead, they had discovered that the children had grown up and were ready to make their own decisions about the future. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her battleship and watched the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, the next chapter of galactic history was being written. And for the first time in centuries, humanity would have a say in how that story ended.